This video outlines my course on health economic evaluation and decision making and summarises the course reading list. Key basketball moves are used as analogues to the key concepts and methods covered on the course. The course comprises 6 sequential stages, and 6 key basketball moves have been selected to match the characteristics of the course components. We begin with the basics. The basketball analogue is the free throw. While some NBA players seem to get by okay without the basics, it's not an advisable strategy.
Robertson will shoot free throws. Ibaka has 10 points in this third quarter. Air ball. Air ball on the free throw.
There's the air balls and then there's air balls.
Wow.
He shot that was at least a foot short of hitting the rim. Guards, ay.
3 lectures cover the basics to economic evaluation, covering the different types of evaluation and key concepts and components, including the quality adjusted life year, the QALY, as a measure of benefit. These 2 papers provide sources of reference for health economic evaluation in general and the use of the QALY as a generic measure of benefit. We now move on to our first specific form of evaluation, the within-trial economic evaluation, which is a relatively straightforward concept, if not always simple in application, for which the accompanying basketball play is the layup, which likewise can be simple or complex.
Can't get it in, and they finally do. Westbrook all the way to the basket, and the bucket. Russell Westbrook got his wheels on and scores it. Now, you still have an opportunity here with 0.8 seconds. But how about that? The inbounds man could not make the key pass. 0.8 of a second. As Washington's defense opens the gates, and Westbrook scores with ease.
The within-trial economic evaluation is also covered in Module 1. The first lecture describes the different forms of clinical studies within which an economic evaluation can be conducted, and the basic approaches to data collection and analysis, as well as posing questions around the sufficiency of within-trial evaluations to inform decision-making. The 2 papers include a reference for the general application of a within-trial evaluation, as well as a well-conducted and reported case study. Having covered the basics and provided some examples of completed economic evaluations, we move on to the use of cost-effectiveness data to inform funding decisions. At this point, we're translating our evidence into practice, which may be viewed as a slam dunk moment.
It's outscoring the starters after the first 3 games. Not sure if that's a good thing. They could use some bench help here tonight. Russell Westbrook got a 10th score. A vicious trigger by Russell Westbrook.
A key concept around the use of cost-effectiveness data to inform funding decisions is the cost-effectiveness threshold. The lectures review the theoretical foundations and practical approaches to the interpretation and use of cost-effectiveness data. There's been a lot written on the use of the cost-effectiveness threshold. Gaffney and Birch have written a range of papers that highlight the dangers of using a threshold. McCabe and colleagues have written about the interpretation of the threshold in England, and Paulden et al. Provide a summary and critique of a recent proposal made by Adelaide-based Brita Pekarsky. Finally, Henry and Hill are past chairs of the Pharmaceutical Benefits Advisory Committee in Australia, and whilst the paper is now 10 years old, it still captures the essence of the PBAC process. We now return to Earth, literally in the case of the slam dunkers, to practice our jump shots and look at other ways in which we can generate cost-effectiveness data, introducing the decision tree as a relatively straightforward model-based approach to economic evaluation.
Find over the last 3. Durant, Kobe one-on-one, 7 to shoot. Durant, windshield wiper. Durant goes into the lane. He gets doubled and tripled. Ibaka with 1 to shoot to beat the buzzer, and he does just that.
And that was more Serge Ibaka effect there as he made.
Once again, put the move on Kobe and rolling it in. Kevin Durant getting into the lane.
Him and Kobe having a good time smiling at each other. Kevin said,
Still in Module 2, we covered decision trees as a framework for economic evaluation. One lecture introduces the general structure of a tree, the required inputs, and methods of analysis using simple examples and noting the strengths and limitations of the decision tree. The other lecture works through a recent case study application to evaluate a screening program, a common application of decision trees. The reading includes a general reference to the use of model-based economic evaluation, which, although almost 20 years old, is still relevant and provides a clear explanation of why model-based evaluation is often necessary. The second paper is a review of alternative modelling approaches, providing a summary of the characteristics and attributes of each form. We now move beyond the arc, or downtown, to shoot 3 pointers, which is analogous to using a state transition model rather than a decision tree as a framework for economic evaluation.
Collison's in to set the screen, and here we go. Durant checked by Gallinari. KD gonna rear back and win it! Thunder wins! Thunder wins! Thunder wins on a buzzer beater by Kevin Durant! How about that?
Get him the ball and let him win the ball game or go into overtime, and Kevin Durant got the distance or the separation that he needed to elevate and knock down that fall-away jumper.
Modules 3 and 4 focus on the use of state transition models as the framework for economic evaluation. We start by illustrating the conceptual move to extrapolate beyond the time horizon of a clinical trial and describe the basic structure and components of state transition models. The remaining lectures describe how to define a model structure, the different sources and methods of analysis for estimating model input parameters, and the implementation of state transition models in Excel spreadsheets. The papers include the recent Modelling Good Research Practices Task Force on conceptualizing and structuring a model, and general advice on the implementation of state transition models. The earlier paper provides a clear and concise introduction to such models. The final components of the course relate to the handling of uncertainty around the validity of the model and the model outputs, which requires a range of alternative tests and analyses to address. This involves a similar level of dexterity to that required to perform my favourite basketball move, the Euro step.
A nice year from the perimeter, but not tonight. Westbrook! Beautiful through traffic. Now watch the step now. 1, 2, and he ends with the left hand. A lot of guys would get down in there and would not be able to come back with their right hand. Beautiful move.
Module 5 focuses on the handling of the inevitable uncertainty around the base case results of any economic evaluation, covering bootstrapping for within-trial evaluations, the representation of uncertainty around individual input parameters for model-based evaluations, alternative forms of sensitivity analysis, as well as thinking about how decision-makers might use or act on uncertainty. The key reference for this module is the Modelling Task Force paper on parameter estimation and uncertainty. Module 6 addresses the issue of model performance evaluation. How can we demonstrate that our models are providing sufficiently accurate and robust estimates of costs and effects? The first 2 lectures describe and illustrate various forms of model validation, whilst the later lectures focus on model calibration as a method that integrates model performance evaluation and uncertainty analysis. The papers for this module include the relevant task force paper, but also a more recent paper that describes a framework for model validation. The final paper describes a case study application of model calibration. So that's the end of this course overview. I hope you enjoyed the basketball analogies as much as I enjoyed putting them together, and that you'll join me in willing KD, Russell, and the rest of the OKC to a much-deserved NBA championship. To constrain expectations, or maybe to allay your fears, I'll note that the rest of the course doesn't maintain the use of sporting analogies, though I may assemble some Port Adelaide footage at some point in the future.